up to something crazy like 100,000 now. So this user group is going to be a bit more of an enterprise focus. This meetup. So we've got Harshad talking about auditing AWS accounts, security, and then we've got Paul talking about kind of the hub and spoke account model and how you run an enterprise with multiple accounts. So I am pretty pleased to announce as well that we just got our first sponsor, first major sponsor on board. So Distillery coming on board for the next two meetups, and we're going to hear a bit of an update about what they're doing as well. And then we've got pizza on the way. So, Harshad.
Good evening, everyone. First time for me here, so hopefully this topic you haven't seen it before and it's something new. So hope you learn something from it. Stop and ask me any questions you've got as I go through. I've got some time at the end for questions as well. So I'll just start. It's not going to be too heavy, not a very big presentation. Security is not probably the most fun topic. 4:30 in the evening, I suppose. I'll try and make it a bit more interesting. So it's pretty light, but I wanted to share some security practices from the experience perspective, from what I've seen and what we ended up doing for some clients. Obviously I haven't mentioned any clients or names or anything like that, but you get the idea when I go through it. But first things first, just a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Harshad Jogaikar. I'm an associate director / senior cloud architect at Deloitte here in New Zealand. So I've been here at Deloitte about 6 weeks, so fairly new. I used to be with Accenture in Australia and then Accenture New Zealand for a number of years, 10 plus years. Most of my experience has been in consulting, cloud consulting, AWS focused, however a little bit on the fringes as well, doing cloud strategy, operating model type work. I've worked with a number of clients in Australia, resources, banks, government, and then lately here I've been with Inland Revenue for a couple of years. I'm originally from India, but I moved to Melbourne, Australia, where I stayed there for 15, 16 years or so, and then moved to Wellington with my wife and kids. So that's my 2 kids. A bit of an inside joke with my wife at the moment is we can't get both boys to look in the same direction in one photo at all. It's impossible. So this is the closest we've been able to get. We'll have to make do. Hopefully in the next session it's a bit more, they're actually looking at the camera. I had a thing for hobbies, but I won't talk too much about it, but if anyone wants to have a come and chat about cricket, badminton, any of the sports that are going on at the moment, happy to do it over beer afterwards. So I'll get started. So I wanted to make this a bit more sort of scenario-based thing that you can actually imagine in your day-to-day lives and relate to. So imagine a scenario where you're working in an organization, your boss has just called you in and said, hey, look, we've got a big audit coming up, a security audit coming up, can you just run an audit as is from all our security accounts and see where the gaps are and what we need to fill. Or you're a consultant like myself, you've been engaged by a client and they've said, our AWS account has started up and started off small, it's grown quite large. Can you do an audit and tell us where the gaps are? Because we're worried that we probably haven't done best practices. So the 2 things I want you to remember is it's from a best practice perspective. So some people may not think that maybe the AWS best practices are always implementable or should be implemented, but this is done from a perspective of implementing security best practices. So what do I mean by that? So most people would have read the security white paper. If you haven't, it's a great paper. So without going into too much detail about it, the 7 things it talks about from a best practice is implement a strong identity foundation. So I'm thinking IAM. Enable traceability, Cloudtrail, flow logs, API logs. Apply security at all levels, automate security best practices, protect data in transit and at rest, keep people away from data, prepare for security events. So there's quite a lot. I'm not going to cover all of these. Don't worry. I will talk about 3 that I quite like, which is the green ones, 1, 2, and 5, which is implementation of a strong identity foundation, enable traceability, and protect data in transit. So again, coming back to our scenario, your boss has asked, our boss has asked us to audit the account, audit our accounts, and we're going to look at it from these lenses. So I'm going to look at IAM, I'm going to look at traceability, and I'm going to look at protecting data in transit. So just a bit of details of what these are. I'm not going to spend too much time. I think you guys already know. When we talk about identity foundation, it's IAM. We talk about protecting data in transit, talking about KMS/SSL, TSL, TLS, connectivity. And when you talk about traceability, we're talking about CloudTrail, VPC logs, etc. So keep that in mind, the things we're talking about. So now we've done that. We've gone. Our boss asked us to do the audit. We've gone and read the white paper. Now we know the best practices. These are the best practices. We want to make sure that the IAM account is implemented with the principle of least privilege, enforcing separation. Those are the key things for IAM: least privilege and separation of duties. So least privilege and separation of duties. How do we track that though? In reality, anyone's used an AWS, you log into your IAM console, and over time you can see it's grown. There's hundreds of possibly users. There's users coming externally from other accounts or assuming roles into your account using resources. So how do we start keeping track of what's going on? So from an auditing perspective, I want to talk about 4 tools that I personally like and use that have given me some insight and to get a picture around these. So the 4 tools, 2 of these most might be familiar with. Access Analyzer, which is a native AWS service that scans IAM accounts in your zone of trust. And Trusted Advisor, which is another AWS native service that does a broad scan across a lot of things, including security, cost optimization, and gives you a set of recommendations on best practices. And 2 tools that I particularly really like are called Principal Mapper and Scout Suite. So these are third-party tools, open source. You can get off GitHub and run on any account, and they give you a really nice picture of what's happening in your account that you can then start digging into to the audit that your boss asked for. Access Analyzer, what does it do? It basically, if you go into the IAM console, you can create an analyzer job, and the account that you're logged in with, it will take that, it will scan that account and find out a number of findings. Presents to you in a way which is, I'll show you the next screen and make more sense. I'll blur out the account numbers and stuff, but it shows you quite a nice view thing. It's the number of findings, what resource in your account is affected, and who is accessing that on the external principle. So the way to read this is AWS account number X, Y, and Z has access to this resource or this role account in your AWS account. This federated user, the ARIN sample, has come in and accessed this account. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or it's a wrong thing. Maybe you intended to have that access. Maybe you didn't. But it's a start. It gives you a view of sort of what's happened. And then you can go through these and you click through each of them and it'll show you in detail what it is, when was it last accessed, etc. And you can do 2 things. You can say, yep, that was intended. I have given that access. It's so-and-so account that accesses it, or it's not intended, and you can stop that. You essentially remove that account from accessing. So this is one way of doing it through Access Analyzer. Now keep in mind, Access Analyzer does it. It's really strong at doing it from a external perspective. So it shows you all the accounts that are coming in to your resources. It doesn't necessarily do a lot of scanning for the internal accounts. So if you have 100 user accounts and they are all sort of talking to each other, assuming roles, it's not going to show you that. So for that, I use this tool called Principal Mapper, which is fantastic, and I'll show you why in 1 minute. But it's just a bit about the tool. What is it? It's an open source tool that you can get on GitHub from that. Its installation is pretty simple. Anyone with the AWS CLI on a developer workstation or even a EC2 instance can install it. It needs Python, a couple of commands that it gives you great details in the README. You run those and it generates a fantastic graphic view of what accounts are talking to what. And coming back to our scenario, so we've done that. First we went and did an access analyzer. We found out all the external ones that are coming in. Now we're gonna go. We went and we run this, and we get a view like this. Now you're not gonna be able to see it. Sorry, it is a very big graph, but I'll show you couple of key things and interesting things in this. So it actually generates a graph exactly this. This is straight out of a principal mapper. What it's showing is the white, on the right, the key you see, the white boxes are essentially local, not admin accounts. So immediately I look at this and say, white admin accounts, fine. It's not, I'm not too stressed about those. They're just users that are doing a job. The blue ones are local admins. So admin that is a straight up roller account that has admin privileges. And the pink salmon color is users who are not admin but have gained admin access through escalation. So they assumed the admin role and gained access. So it looks great, but what's it actually telling me? Now, if I look at this, I'm thinking there's a lot of stuff going on. So first thing I'm looking for is this box here. That's the blue box in the middle. That's a bit concerning for me. What that's showing me is we've got a local admin account, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 10, 15 local users that have assumed that role and become admin in that account. Now, I'm not sure if I have 15 admins in my team, or do they need to have that access? I'm not really sure. So you can sort of zoom in and take a look. So this is a zoomed in view of that blue box. If you look at that, you can start seeing I've got this user, and 10 other users that are assuming role into that admin account and becoming admins. Do they really need admin privileges? Go back to what was our best practice, least privilege. Do they need to have admin accounts? So I'm going to start getting a list out of this saying, yes, 15 people, do you need admin access? Do you need admin access? Maybe I'm dropping them out. So I'm updating. So I find out, say, for example, these two users on the far left don't need admin access, they need power access. You can update the policy to allow only assume access to the power user, for example, not to the admin user, and so on. So you start getting an idea. Between access analyzer and power and principal mapper, it's a great way to see what's actually happening in your accounts. Does that make sense? Any questions? I don't know how many of you have used this tool before.
How do you define admin versus non-admin? What's your definition for this?
It picks it up from full access, essentially. Anything that has full access. If you've got that, if you use AWS managed policy of that has full access, it says it's admin. Whether if you do full access just for S3 or full access just for, say, RDS and not for everything else, you still pick it up as essentially admin. So you might have to tweak around that. One thing to note about Principal Mapper is this is showing a view in that account that you are logged in. So you have run this as from your developer workstation as CLI. So whatever profile you have saved, it will show for that profile. If you have 10 different accounts, at the moment you need to run them separately 10 times. That's the only trick with it. I think there's potential for it to start having multiple accounts then locked in or provided at the same time. But as it stands now, it's per account. Okay. So the three things we want to focus on. One was the IAM, so we spoke about that. Second thing I wanted to talk about was protection of data in transit. This is essentially encryption of any KMS type stuff. I wanted to see my accounts have grown really large. I've got tons of EBS volumes and snapshots that keep happening. I don't know what's going on. So what do I do? The first tool, we have the native trusted advisor. Great tool. Provides a lot of information. I find it's quite broad. So like I was saying earlier, it covers the cost, it covers performance, security, etc. Within security, it's showing you a number of things. So full disclosure, the account that I ran this on is different to the account from the PC mapper, hence there's not a lot of findings for Trusted Advisor. But the key message out of this for me is, it's very broad as opposed to deep. That if you want to go deep, you need to get a higher support plan. So if you're not on a business plan or an enterprise support plan, you can't get all the detailed findings. This is bear that in mind. But it's really handy for things like that. So that immediately tells me there's a bit of an issue. MFA on root is disabled, so I've immediately got a finding out of that I can use. But it hasn't given me any sort of EDSE stuff here. So what else can we do? So then we go into the third-party tool that I use, Scout Suite. It's a fantastic tool. It's a really, really powerful tool. It scans the entire AWS account and gives you a nice HTML-based view of what is going on across pretty much everything. Again, open source, available on GitHub, easy to set up. The installation and running is pretty. Sorry, before I move on to installation, I just want to call out for both the tools, neither of them need you to do the form with AWS for pen testing. They just use APIs that are available, so anybody can download and run. You don't need to do the form that you would normally have to. I think if you do a certain type of pen testing on AWS, you have to do the form with AWS. So for both of them, these you don't have to, so it's pretty handy, pretty easy to do. So installation is again similar to a principal mapper. Any developer machine with AWS CLI or EC2 instance you can run on. It again picks up the profile that you're logged in with and takes the information from that and scans that account. And it gives you a report like this. I really wanted to show you the actual report through HTML, but it had a lot of information that I couldn't share, so I had to do screenshots of it very quickly. So you can see here, in fact, it's showing me a lot of things. It scanned a lot of things, and it keeps going as well. I have to cut it off somewhere. But it's got certificate manager, Lambda, CloudFormation, CloudTrail, and keeps going on and on. So the thing that I care about for today's purpose was EC2, for example, right? The EBS volumes on a no encryption. That was our ask. When boss asked, what's your encryption? How are we doing for encryption? So then you can actually click on it. You click on the EC2, it gives you this screen. And it says, within EC2, you've scanned 465 snapshots, 193 have been flagged, EBS volumes are not encrypted, 4 were scanned, 2 were flagged. And so it's started getting some idea that, all right, quite a lot of my stuff is not encrypted. You can actually click on that. So I care about the encryption for this purpose. So I click on that, and you get the more detailed view. So it actually tells you the AP Southeast 2, volume number, blah, 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 attached to instance, X, Y, and Z, encrypted false. So it gives me now I can get a report. All these, by the way, reports you can actually you can download a CSV into Excel, so you get like a nice view of all these volumes are not encrypted, and we can start doing something about it. Then the last thing was traceability. So again, I use Scout Suite for this. The similar sort of approach. You've run the tool, you've looked at the report, and you will see that CloudTrail is highlighted. It's got a red next to it. So why does it have a red? You can click on it, and it tells you it's only two things that are wrong with it. Global services logging is disabled and not configured. So global services logging disabled means global services like IAM and CloudFront, for example, are not monitored at either region, because as CloudTrail is regional, if you don't, you have to pick one region and enable global services for things like IAM to be monitored. So that's not been enabled on this account, and not configured. So that's a bit of a concern. It's not configured for one of the regions that I have. So how many regions will be in here? 16 regions. One region is flagged as not having CloudTrail. So you can click on that, and it'll tell you which regions is not compliant. So then I've got an action item on this to take back and say, well, probably should turn it on. And that's pretty much it, really. So going back to our scenario that we had, what your boss or the client asked, saying, give me scan our environment and tell me what's wrong with it in security perspective. We ran within 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. We ran all these scripts and checks, and we found 6 things. We found the external accounts, roles, users accessing the resources in our accounts. So we ran Access Analyzer and found what external accounts are coming in to our account. We ran Principal Mapper. We came up with a list of roles, users within our account that are escalating to admin. So we already got to IAM findings. We found that MFA is not enabled on the root account, which is a massive issue. That we found that through Trusted Advisor. We found out through Scout Suite that the EBS volumes are not encrypted. We got a list of that. We extracted that out. Global services logging is disabled. We found that out for CloudTrail, and we found CloudTrail is not enabled in AP Southeast 2. Within 20-25 minutes, it'll take you, if you don't have AWS CLI set up, for example, it'll take you a bit longer, but you get the idea. You have these tools set up, you run them frequently enough. It's a good way to get an idea of what's happening and what's wrong. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to train it too much. I'll thank you for listening, and hopefully you found it useful. It's stuff that I use quite a lot in my job, so particularly passionate about it. Happy to chat with anybody more afterwards. Any questions?
What's the time? What are your recommendations for time frames? Like, are you doing continually monitoring all the time, or are you doing something for a security audit?
The correct answer to that is, I think security should be proactive. If you think about it, a lot of this stuff shouldn't appear on this report. So you've done all the right stuff up front. So you talk about, say, take example EBS volumes. You can now actually go into things like SCP, service control policies for organizations, and have a policy set up that says any volume in my account must be encrypted. So if you do this proactive stuff up front, you don't need to run these things later on. So the auditing for me is a bit of a reactive thing. It's probably the nature of my job, because being a consultant, we go and do it when somebody asks us to. We don't do it at a regular interval, so to speak. But I think the proper answer is, if it shouldn't get to this point where you're seeing 400 odd volumes are not encrypted. You know what I mean? If all the checks are done up front correctly and you've set up the policies correctly, snapshot encrypted by default. My recommendation would be, run it as frequently as you can. It doesn't take long to run. It's not resource heavy. It doesn't use any of the AWS resources. It doesn't cost you anything. You can run it daily almost if you have to. And once it's set up, it just, it's like one command line tool. You type and it generates all the files on your laptop. Yeah. I'll be around, so we'll have a chat afterwards. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you. How do we get in contact with you where you got any more questions?
Yes, good point. LinkedIn, probably the best.
So you'll be around.
I'll be around, so I'll give some details afterwards.
Okay. We're just going to take a quick 5-10 minute break while we set up the next one. Don't go anywhere. Well.
The party is called the Great Kiwi Takeover Summit Party. Yeah, it's the same page. Anyone is invited to it. In there, they will present and deliver some AWS industry awards and something called the Tall Story Awards. It's also open to any client to attend.
There's a QR code on there.
Oh yes, QR code. Get out your way so you can get the QR code. Any questions? Just ask one.
Hi guys. Just a quick website update, as promised last time as well. Still a work in progress. The leaderboard, I had hoped it would be ready by today, but not quite. We have made some other progress today, so I'll just quickly give you an update.
thanks for everybody that's registered. I see we've got quite a lot of users that signed up, and also quite a few of you that's already uploaded your certifications. So, yeah, in the next week or so you can expect, well, maybe you're wrong, correct, that in the next week or two, you'll be able to start seeing your own certs that you've uploaded, obviously, on the website and manage those. And I'm hoping also to have the leaderboard up and running before our next meetup. In the meantime, if anybody of you is interested in becoming a speaker here, you can now actually do the online speaker registration form. So basically just, if you're interested, you can just fill in this little form, your contact details, a short description of what you would like to talk about, and maybe some proposed dates. You'll notice the calendars only accept the first Tuesday of every month, because those obviously are the meetup dates. So, and if you can just give us an estimate of how long you think your talk might be, that would be very useful for us to plan the event, and also an alternate speaker date. If you are dead set on specifically giving a talk on one specific date, just make your alternate date the same as the other date, and then submit the form, and that will automatically send an email address, an email to the internal organisers, and we'll be in touch with you to basically just make final arrangements. Then also just, if you can also now see, we've got our society rules listed at the bottom here, so if anybody's interested to find out more about our society and by which rules we organise, then you can read about that. We'll also shortly add in a link about becoming an internal organiser or joining the internal committee, and just kind of like what the expectations are, how often we meet, etc. So you'll have links to that as well. And then finally, I'm not going to show all the stuff now, but if you sign in, you'll notice you can do a bit more now. You'll be able to reset your passwords. I don't yet have the password, if you forget your password, but that should be coming by this weekend. And then finally, the blogs will also become available very soon. And so the blog engine is basically already written. All I'm just working on is the commenting section. So hopefully that will be up in the next couple of days. And anybody can submit a blog. So if you would like to write something to us, you can actually submit a blog. We'll get a copy of the blog. It won't immediately go online. The internal organisers will first review the blog. They might get in touch with you. And then based on whatever that discussion unfolds, we'll basically just publish your blog. And then it gives you an opportunity and a platform, basically, if you'd like to talk about stuff, then you can do it also via the website. So yeah, we'll have a blog on how to blog on the website coming up soon. So that's it from me. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carlos.
No worries.
I just wanted to talk on the speakers thing as well. If you're sitting there thinking that you want to share something, or you've just completed a project that you want to rave about, but you know aren't comfortable with standing up here and talking to people, then still apply. We can help, and we'll help you put the presentation together, and then we can run you through that with a buddy or whatever you want. So next up we have got Paul Dunlop, and I've worked with Paul in a previous life, and Paul's going to talk about kind of hub and spoke account models. He's quite passionate about overlaying service management and kind of cloud operating models. Cool. Just trying to figure out how to plug this one.
On the speaker stuff, I am put my hand up to speak, and I didn't get a buddy to run through. So.
Oh, you've spoken at New Zealand Summit before.
So if you are going to speak, we'll make sure you get a buddy. Alrighty. Once again, my name's Paul Dunlop. I am an APN ambassador, and I work for Accenture as a cloud technical architect manager. My presentation today is essentially pulling together insights and evolution that I've observed over the last about 5 years with AWS, and finding more or less sort of like a hidden nugget in a way in regards to how it's emerged into the enterprise world. So I'm just going to sort of talk about that story. I wrote a white paper to coalesce this in November, and that went over these points, so I'm going to pretty much cover those in a high level, but there's more detail in that white paper as well. So So we're going to go over the AWS account history, programmatic account creation, account predefined baselines, hubs, account mesh, some tooling options and some recommendations. And by the end of this, you'll either realise it's non-trivial or just reinforce this fact in your mind. So the average AWS customer has more than one AWS account. Just I'd be interested to know how many people have just one or looking after one. Show of hands. One over there. Say 2 to 5. That's 3 or 4, 5, 6, 5 to 10. 4 and more than 10.
More than 100?
More than 100? Probably got super in the corner. Alright, so most of us are actually more than 5 really, on average here. So that's probably going to play into this quite nicely for the knowledge base. Right, so I'm going to wind it back. We'll go and talk about account history all the way back in the day. Starting all the way prior to 2010, there were no accounts that were linked. They were all isolated and disorganized, separate entities. There was no billing consolidation, so our major pain points were that there was an invoice per account and that the account governance was either absent, manual, or dependent on third-party tools. So when I talk about account governance, we talk about the baseline security controls that needed to be set up as a security best practice. Back then, there were just a small subset of tooling that we had to worry about, and they typically covered an account-based topic or a host-based one, where the core services would be CloudTrail to do security audit trailing of API calls made into AWS, config and config rules to work out any state changes made on resources, and then you'd deploy your cross-account roles across your account estate. And the operational services on the host would be your integration mainly with CloudWatch using logging and alarming metrics. So generally that would be something that we'd have by default when we're managing our accounts. That would be a concern across all of our accounts that needed to be deployed. In 2010, consolidated billing was released, primarily as a response to the single invoice hell that everyone was feeling at the time. So the accounts at that point in time were linked. They linked up to a consolidated billing account. The billing became rolled up into that billing account itself. And then there was a new best practice that pretty much emerged, which was to state that the consolidated billing account should only be used for billing. No one should be logging into that. So as a subsequent consequence, we ended up having an identity account and then doing multiple resources from there. So we'd centralize the way that we would do identity and do cross-account roles into the resource accounts. We still had some pain points. Account creation was still manual, and hydration of these baselines from a governance perspective was still difficult to achieve across the whole accounts. So in 2017, skip forward a little bit, AWS released organizations. Another response that's pretty much said it enables you to centrally manage policies across multiple accounts without requiring custom scripts and managed processes. So the centralized connotation there was hit upon quite nicely. Everyone started to think, well, we've got a new way of actually doing centralized management across the board. And the consolidated billing accounts were auto-upgraded to be the organizational masters. They became essentially the root of the master account. Automated account creation was introduced and became possible by API calls only. Service control policies, round 1 was introduced. By round 1 I mean that the original inception of service control policies could only let you turn on and off a service. It wouldn't do the granular policy controls that it can do today. Best practice was still pretty much the same in regards to the account strategy, except that it introduced more or less a directory service organizational unit structure that allowed you to group your accounts and apply the service control policies against like-minded accounts. We still had pain points where account hydration was still a problem, and the process to handle the automated account creation was still left up to the customer to build. You just now had an API that you could call. It's going to be hit another 5 months. AWS released a blog post called How to Use AWS Organizations to Automate End-to-End Account Creation. This essentially became the first publicly scripted capability to not only create an account using a script, but also hydrating it to a baseline. So the CloudTrail, the config roles, your cross-account roles, and your CloudWatch login log groups being turned on were all part of the capability of the script environment. It also essentially cemented that those concepts within the landscape of vendors and customers of what was possible moving forward. Previously, it was a next finish to create an account. Now you could write a script to go and build one immediately. So that you could automate your AWS accounts using the OUs. You would have essentially solidified certain policies into your baseline as well, extending that baseline to say use your policies. And then the automated migration is something that you should really be considering using. So skip forward to today. There are now several versions of the way that programmatic account creation and hydration has occurred since then. There is still the original bash script solution that was originally posted. You could still use that if you really wanted to. There was actually an AWS Account Factory script that was written after that. It's not generally known about, and the Account Factory terminology is now inherently incorporated into the AWS Landing Zone solution, which was a very powerful solution written by about 4 or 5 people inside AWS in response to managing multiple account creation and migration. And from the landing zone, the control tower was born, so we had the control tower product. And along the way, HashiCorp themselves have created a Terraform landing zone. And then there's a notable mention for the deployment framework. It's not able to create accounts programmatically, but it can hydrate. So I feel it's important to add it to the list. So there's still a key problem here now is that you've got all these tools and there are different use cases between these tools, so it can make it difficult to determine which ones to use. So you should consider reviewing the grey zones of each of those tools and work out which ones you're going to use for what purpose. So I'm just going to do a quick side jump into a couple of these, primarily because they're probably new to you, so it might be useful to have a look at these quickly. I'll just have a look at the landing zone, the control tower, and the deployment framework for you. So the landing zone solution again was introduced in 2018, originally scripted internally by 4 AWS experts, I believe. They did it in response to the fact that design choices setting up a multiple account environment could take a significant amount of time, and that automating the setup of the environment for running secure and scalable workloads is a really strong benefit. It allowed essentially your cloud team to define a standard pattern for accounts and the baseline security within them and go to security and say, rubber stamp this, because every time I deploy an account, it'll be to that standard. So it changed the whole rhetoric around cloud for the team when we went to the enterprise security. As a result, it also introduced a multi-account strategy. AWS in their infinite wisdom came up with a evolution on their baseline for what accounts you should have in your strategy by default. I don't know if you've ever seen billing tooling or internal audit. Scott had 100, you might have. But I haven't. So for me, the concept of what a best practices around your account strategy is more or less what fits for you, really. There will probably be some commonality amongst us as enterprises where we have things like shared services and logging and networking and security that are quite common across the ICT stack for everyone. But how you deploy your other accounts in regards to lifecycling, whether you do dev prod or pre-prod or staging, is up to you, right? So I sort of take this as a guideline. There's essentially 12 plus accounts by default with this landing zone as a result. So there was a major drawback that existed with the landing zone. It is a highly complicated bespoke system implemented in your master account needing water and feeding. However, it's very nerdy and very cool, right? So they wrote some really, really cool step functions. They're super complex, and if you are ever interested in learning step functions and how they work at scale and integrate across multiple accounts, grab that code now before it disappears. The landing zone solution is available freely at the moment if you know how to get it, and that code is gone. So it is something that they've had to upgrade over time, and the upgrade path has been stepped. So if you had started at version 1 and you wanted to go to 2 and you hadn't done the incrementals in there, you would have to do the incrementals before you can get to 2. And they're not necessarily easy incrementals. Right, Scott?
How do you, if you're going to go to the next version, how do you test it before rolling it out across your 100 100 to...
Create another landing zone is the short answer for that one, my friend. Yep. So, and that's not unheard of either. Yep. So the fact that the core aspects of that solution primarily reside within the master account and some of it within the shared services account, you could get away with minimal accounts being replicated. As a result, you wouldn't have to do your entire account fleet to do your upgrade test. So you should be okay with that. Okay, so and a part of this very cool nerdy landscape being hard to manage excited AWS so much that they created the control tower as a result. They decided that this was so powerful and so beneficial to their customers that it needed to be a managed service. And they essentially took version 1 of the code set from the 4 developers and they created the managed service called Control Tower. There's a little bit of disparity along the way between the code revisions. So landing zone was actually ahead of Control Tower and possibly still is to this day. And there will be a point where they converge so that the existing landing zones that are being built to a particular version will be able to be imported into Control Tower, and you won't have to have the pain of worrying about managing the landers and the step functions that are in your master. Alongside that, Control Tower set down some standards around guardrails and push the point about account factory and automation of your account. Again, doing the whole spiel around rubber stamping an account is a really good thing, and automating its build is extremely beneficial. The AWS deployment framework gets an honourable mention because it hooks into the organisations. It does two things. Its primary reason for existence is that it's a multi-account, multi-region pipeline management platform. So part of the conversation that you don't really hear too much about is how do you do cloud-native pipeline management across multiple accounts and multiple regions in AWS. Another set of AWS engineers decided that this was something they were going to solve, and they came up with a deployment framework and wrote it. If you don't use it, you'll end up having to do it yourself. You could still use things like Jenkins, the traditional code pipeline management tools. If you wanted to, that's perfectly fine. In regards to cloud native, though, with using the AWS cloud stack for code pipeline, code build, code star, all the others, these guys came up with this concept. So the organizational aspect is that when you move an account into an OU, the act of doing so is a trigger that is being watched by a CloudWatch event rule that then triggers the deployment framework to go and execute CloudFormation that's being built into the member account. So that could then essentially deploy the CloudTrail setup, your config setup, and your logging setup, etc. It had the additional benefit, though, of being able to deploy pipelines themselves and manage the pipeline infrastructure for you too, which was very good. Again, though, it is a little bit cautionary in regards to the landing zone. It's deployed in your account and it is managed by their code base. So if there's any bugs or issues or gremlins in the system, you're kind of beholden to the framework that you've got to get their help or be involved in fork it and try and resolve it yourself. Pretty cool. Right, so let's just go back to the baselines a little bit. So essentially what's happened over the last 5 years is that our baselines have gone from being CloudTrail config and starting to include new services like guard duty and then event delivery network to the enterprise poking the nose into the cloud and saying, you know, hey, we've got ITSM and ITIL, what about that? You know, you don't seem to be understanding too much that we do backup services or scheduling services or proxy services. And so the way that we end up having to have an account built has been changing over time. So the security baselines at the top there are still required. The core cloud native services are still ever present to be set up by default. But the extension of what we would call a service delivery platform has been emerging in the enterprise as operations starts to get a larger play on having to manage multiple AWS accounts. So the key points there are more baselines have emerged over time and are becoming more complex as AWS innovates. It's not desirable to manually deploy these baselines. It's historically integrating member accounts into a centralized solution has been typically hard and left up to us. Though AWS are listening to their customers to try to solve this issue, and the service delivery platform is emerging. So we're starting to see ITSM being applied into our baselines. So this predefined baseline account integration mesh, if you will, is becoming more of this service delivery platform hub and spoke model, primary core of this. So I'll just redefine what a hub is for you. Essentially, it's come from the airport landscape where they have a primary hub and they can route out through to the spokes. Claims that they offer more flights to their customers. It's a centralized control plane and allows you to aggregate from the spokes. So what hubs have I seen or we've been seeing from varying sources over the time that have been poking their heads up now? Start seeing an audit hub, a deployment hub, directory services hub, event hub, firewall hub, network hub, operations hub, an organizations hub, scheduling hub, security hub, an SSO hub, and there are more. And each and every one of those has a design behind them. So they're non-trivial in their own way. And not only do they have their design, but they need to integrate into their member accounts. So the whole centralized aspect of how do I deploy my security groups that are needed in every VPC, how do I do that from a centralized location to make my life easy has always been a concern. So that becomes your control plane, pushing out the security groups into your groups. And pretty much, if you go and hunt it down on the internet, you should find AWS blog posts that allow you to see the baseline designs for some of these, quite a lot of them. So one of the things that I've got on my list of things to do is expand my white paper to sort of talk more about those baseline designs. So the main benefit of hub and spoke systems, that you're going to have one place to manage the configuration and you'll have one place to aggregate. What's the detriment? The security and integration aspects between the accounts and the model is highly complex, hence the automation is the key. So how do my spokes integrate into my hub? And how many hubs have I got to integrate into? Becomes the next problem you've got to deal with. And then you have this risk where you decide that there's going to be a one-to-one relationship between a hub and an AWS account. So it's not possible to achieve a single AWS account that has all your hubs in it, which is kind of what people think AWS organizations is going to achieve. So up the top you've got the master account, all the hubs are in it, and all your resource accounts or member accounts are all integrating into that. It doesn't really work. It'd be great, because crossover account access would be simplified, because there's only one account to manage the access endpoints into. Just doesn't allow for the granularity of the account segmentation that typically has been required by best practice. So these accounts are generally the bare minimum that will get targeted to be isolated in their own accounts. You know, your audit hub, your deployment hub, your network hub, and your security hub. So by default, your service delivery platform accounts that are your hubs are going to be a minimum of 4 to 5. So if you decide that you've got, oh, then maybe I should just be doing a hub per account, you're going to start looking at an architecture that looks like this. And that gets very overwhelming pretty quickly. Right? So consider every orange box has its own design, and every line going into it is its integration point that needs to be automated. You've got, and essentially that's forming your new baseline. So every orange part of that diagram is also inherently part of the resource account, because that's what you need there by default to manage your estate. Then you've got quite a complex environment to architect design to make sure it's functionally fit for purpose and security and complaining. When they do their audits, they come up green. So this is actually similar to VPC pairing, believe it or not. AWS accounts are becoming a complex mesh now. So this is how VPC pairing managed to solve it. We've got the transit gateway. So we used to have VPC pairing where it would be a mesh. Actually a line that's missing here as well. It's a mesh there. And so the transit gateway came along because everyone was complaining about how hard it was to manage a mesh environment. So AWS responded with creating a centralized version using the transit gateway as a hub. But we've still got account mesh. So I think AWS Organizations Master Account hasn't and is unlikely to ever achieve the outcome of being a single centralized account for all hubs. Right, destroy that dream now. We must consider the architectural impacts this meshed environment presents as the norm and design each hub accordingly. And the key there, one of the keys there is that security and integration aspects between the hubs and their spokes can be highly complex to tackle in an automated fashion. And another reason for that is sometimes the new features that come out from AWS are difficult to script in an automated fashion. So your tooling, like the landing zone and the control tower, they do CloudFormation templates by default, but they won't do a bash script, for example. And you might need a bash script to integrate your latest hub with your latest spoke. So the key takeaway for me is review the varying hubs in AWS and consolidate them into a single account where they share similar roles. It's probably a good idea. It'll lower down the complexity of your integration, security around your integration. So consider things like the network hub and the firewall hubs. They could share the same AWS account. But you might find that firewall name is a security topic rather than a network one, so maybe you might want to put it in your security account. So it's really up to each organisation to consider what each hub solution's design will look like and which accounts should share what hubs. So ideally the goal should be reducing the mesh, the orange ones, while allowing your blue ones to grow at will. So an example of this would be, say, the directory services hubs, operations hubs, scheduling hub will fit in operations. You've got your event hub, your organisation hub and SSO hub sitting in master. And you've got your firewall and your network and your network accounts. So instead of having 11 accounts for your service delivery platform, you'd have 6. 5 less to manage and to integrate. So in regards to some tools, here's some food for thought. So my disclaimer is review this stuff before you use it. This is taken from a perspective of trying to be cloud native. So I've more or less coalesced on those tools as a result. It's kind of my first instinct is if I'm just living in AWS, what would I use? So AWS Organization, Control Tower and Deployment Framework would be probably what I would mix in together as a hybrid tool set. I'd use organizations for the account building consolidation, the service control policies, assigning the org services, the AWS organizational services to accounts such as the Resource Access Manager and the Firewall, and the WAF Manager, all these different services that orgs provides. I'd use the AWS Control Tower to automate the account creation through the Account Factory because it's a pretty robust tool. I'd set up managed guardrails using this tool. It's got a good dashboard system to pull back the reporting mechanism on that. And then I'd use the deployment framework because if I wanted to go beyond the Account Factory's hydration tools, I had another tool to do it, and it manages my pipelines. So I've solved yet another problem by using that tool set. There is, unfortunately, this will caveat with my great glorious plan, which is that AWS hasn't released Control Tower to Sydney regions. I'm not quite sure why, really. I think it has something to do with VPCs, but it's a little bit weird. It's essentially GA. By using this tool set, you would have something like this as a hydration process or an account creation and hydration process. Control Tower would create the new account. The new account will be moved into an OU. The act of moving it into an OU would trigger the organization, the Account Factory, and the deployment hub to go and kick into life. And it would apply your account baselines, your deployment framework baselines, and your application pipelines. All just happen seamlessly. And another great aspect that I haven't actually mentioned is that the Control Tower provides you self-service provision. So if you were to go the extra mile, you could integrate the Account Factory's service catalog into your ServiceNow system and enable your developers to request an AWS account through ServiceNow and use workflow provisioning to actually get all of that kicked into life in the background. It's fun times. There's a lot to think about. There's so many different aspects of integrating and controlling your landscape. And it doesn't stop there, because AWS don't stop innovating. And as a kind of a key point, since November, since I wrote it, on the 12th of February 2020, AWS has released another hydration tool, which is essentially an upgrade on their CloudFormation StackSets technology, where now you can tick a box, deploy to the organization, and your stack set, when an account joins or leaves the organization, will actually get that stack set deployed to it. So it puts a little kink in my tooling, recommended tooling list, because now I've got to consider whether, do I want to use this in my tool set? If so, which account should I do it from? Do I want to deploy all my stack sets from my master, or do I want to create some kind of stack set admin or deployment account? Does that become my new hub? And then what are the gotchas with this particular? What kind of things does it do that I really want it to do, and it doesn't do out of the box because it's MVP, it's only new. So you've got to keep an eye on that kind of stuff happening, right? So my final thoughts would be that AWS best practices evolved over time, and they will continue to do so. So don't take them as gospel necessarily. Use them as a baseline for you to build your own best practice off. Each hub comes with its own design and integration complexities, so it's not a small topic. You saw how many hubs are listed, and there are more. Enterprise cloud architects should work out with security which hubs can coexist within a single AWS account as part of the account strategy. Programmatic AWS account creation and hydration should be core to your approach. Keep an eye out on AWS at all times, and don't let the options and complexity paralyze you into making a decision, right? I mean, back in the day, well, back in the day, it's like 2 years ago when Landing Zone came out, just because it was brand new, and you might have heard that maybe they were going to innovate it into Control Tower, it shouldn't really have precluded you from jumping in and using it if it was going to get benefit. You derive that benefit now and use it now, and then continually evolve your practices in the cloud is a key point, right? That's what we're supposed to do, is continue to go back to your platform and uplift it. If you find with the cloud formation stack sets, the deployment to the organization is something you want to adopt it, add it into your sprints, uplift your platform to deal with it. Don't let it become hell. So thanks very much for listening to that. That's my dribble. A small committee member sponsorship thing here around the user group. Please spread the word about the user group. It'd be really great if more people knew about us and were coming. That'd be really brilliant. And again, thank you very much for tuning out tonight. Really appreciate your time. If you are interested in being a speaker, once again, I'd like to reiterate that you can register your expression of interest online. And we are looking for sponsors too. So if you know of people who just want to sponsor one event or maybe 2 or 3 or even an entire year, we've got options. Feel free to find a committee member to talk to about it. We've got options. And then the white paper link down the bottom if you want to just go read where this is all stealing from. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
I can take questions, yep. If anyone's got anything.
How do you separate that hub accounts from your hubs?
Well, you would, multiple ways. So service control policy should be one of the ways that you would enable or lower the restrictions that you might have on your hub accounts. So you'd want a vendor dev in a sandpit using the account, and by default you'd want CloudTrail turned on and a couple of your security baselines to watch what the dev are doing. But you'd use the service control policies to widen the capability they have within their dev environment. And part of the reason for giving them an AWS account in their own right is to keep them away from problem. So don't be afraid of giving them their own account. So use the service control policies to limit the blast radius of what they can do with things like don't let them start like an X1, but let them start an XC2. Yeah.
One of the rude awakenings I had when I started using Landing Zone was I discovered that people were giving all of the accounts that it was creating to the same admins, right? So you'd have a team of 3 people that had all the credentials from everything. So it was really defeating the separation of duties purpose. And I just like to get your perspective. I seem to work with a lot of organizations where they have, one small team that does all the things. How much of this hub and spoke model is invalidated if you don't have separation of duties?
The main part that's invalidated, right? I think there's a core problem in the organisation if you only got a small group of people that are involved in that, because you've got other teams such as the security that need to be brought on this journey, right? I mean, part of the reason why that security account exists is called BCP and lockdown, in essence. So only really those in security should have that capability, not just the general admins in IT. So I kind of look at it that the domain admins account is like the the managed policy by AWS for administrator access is like the domain admins in Active Directory. So yeah, there's going to be a small subset of people who have that capability regardless, because someone's going to need to get into BCP. But you should follow granular least privilege. You've got to kick into that model at some point. So you'll find that the more that you evolve, generally it'll start small with people in the organisation called Black Ops. They've gone and started an AWS account, they've gone rogue, you're bringing them back in line, and as the enterprise starts to adopt more and more around the cloud, then you get more and more maturity around your processes, and you bring security along the journey, and they stop flapping about, oh, it's dangerous, it's the Wild West. You say, no, we've done it right, we're using the factory, we've got the baselines, and we can do granular least privilege. They go, all right then. And so you just got to implement it, and you've got to get people across that correctly. So I'd make full recommendation if you can start looking into it. AWS SSO is essentially a competitor to Azure AD in the fact that it's an identity provider, but it integrates now into Azure AD. So you can still have Azure AD as your federation hub, your master. And using SSO, you can provision permission sets to all of your accounts. So you can have an identity control much nicer than some of the older ways of doing cross-account management. It's probably part of the reason why people had admin accounts was also how hard it is to provision roles, right? With the AWS SSO, it's so much easier. So there shouldn't really be an excuse. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. Just set it up properly, and if the keys to all the accounts get into the same people, then that's an organizational problem that had to be fixed anyway.
Yep. At the end of the day, security is not just about technology, it's about process and policy too. People often forget that. Sometimes we have to make people sign a contract and say that they'll ethically be good. And if they breach their ethics on their job, then they'll get slapped. Yeah.
On the automatic account creation, how does it handle passwords?
The organisational system under the hood has a service account that gets privileged, essentially, right? So as a managed service, the organisation needs to be able to manage that account. So by default, it's going to have a role in there that it can assume and do what it needs to do at a privileged level. From there, the master has controls that allows you to assume that role if you're in the master. So if you've got an IAM account in the master, then by default you typically have access to assume that role in the member account. And from there you've got admin access essentially to do the job. Primarily there though for essentially service orchestration by the org. And there are caveats around the service control policies that stop you from basically killing that process from being able to do its job. So essentially, so it'll get deployed, it'll have the organisational role by default, but then you should come along with the AWS SSO and deploy permission sets. And then that'll be how you get your access into it. Well, you could still go and do IAM users, but then you're doing that per account, and you're going to have some kind of mechanism to deal with that. And that could be, there are solutions that have been made by people over the years, but again, they're sort of custom, they're bespoke, you have to deploy them, and you've got to order and treat them yourself. It's part of the reason why I really like SSO, because it's a managed service by AWS that does all of the deployment of those permission controls for you.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Cheers. So there's pizza out there in the hub, so stick around, have a chat. There's also a soft drink, but the cups are over there, so if you want a cup, get coming over there, then go out there. Cheers, thanks for coming. Cool.